Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another thing where I talk about things. Today, we're going to talk about Coco, the movie Coco. I went and I saw that recently, the Disney movie. This is take two. Last time I got a ways into this conversation, and then the dog, seeing that I was up and about, thought it was time to bring in the squeak ball. And so we got a lot of squeak ball, and now we're doing another take of this thing. So anyway, yes, Coco. I guess in other news, we'll talk about we had NAS 2 came out, and currently I'm waiting to see how YouTube's going to react to it. With all the controversy going on right now, they've been shutting down channels and banning things, and as it works out, whenever YouTube does something automated, if people are getting messed up by an automated thing, I always think it's safe to assume I will be the target of it soon. So, we're going to see whether or not the channel gets in trouble for posting NAS. Everyone keeps saying that they're not sure if legit parodies are going to get swept up in the dragnet. I haven't seen anyone talking about being hit for that yet. Except for the big new lunar thing. The new lunar takedowns were really interesting. But that wasn't specifically targeted at pony videos. That was just a really weird thing that YouTube did. And then I don't know if they apologized for it, but I'm sure they weren't sorry anyway. This is YouTube. So anyway, Coco, right. So I went and I saw that movie, and I remember when Claudia first told me she wanted to go see it, she pointed to a poster at the movie theater. I can't recall what movie we had just seen, but they had this big old poster, and like Olaf was on the front of it, and it was like Olaf's Winter Adventure. And so Claudia's like, "Do you want to go see that movie?" And I was like, "Olaf's Winter Adventure. I don't know if I want to go see Olaf, dear. I feel like I actually never call Claudia dear. Dear is kind of like an insult in my family. It's something that's often said sarcastically. So anyway, yes, I never call Claudia dear. But anyway, though, I said I don't feel like going to see Olaf. I'll be honest, I don't really like Olaf. And she goes, no, not that one. The movie behind it. And I was like, oh, Coco. Coco, I haven't really heard very much about that, but yeah, I'll be up for Coco. Like, I don't really want to see Olaf, but I'll go see Coco. And so, sure enough, that time came around, and I had completely forgotten about Olaf's Frozen Adventure until Coco starts up. And it turns out that if you want to see Disney's Coco, you have to watch Disney's Olaf Frozen Adventure. You're not allowed to skip it in the theater. You have to watch the whole Frozen Adventure. And so when I thought that it was going to be a short, I was thinking like those cool Pixar shorts that they used to do, you know, like back in the day when they had like the little old man who's playing chess with himself, and he's like going on both sides of the table, and then he like fakes out his own heart attack, which confuses himself, and then he like cheats, and he like, you know, like that whole thing was really cute and really good and really creative. Like, you know, you love those old Pixar shorts. So I thought like, all right, an Olaf short, like, you know, a little uninspired. You know, it's not quite up to Pixar. It's not going to be Pixar's best short ever. But, you know, they already have the character rigs, and kids apparently love Anna and Elsa and, you know, Frozen. That's why they're all over YouTube and a huge controversy right now. So, yes, turns out that when they said short, they meant like 20 minutes. It's basically a feature-length cartoon of Olaf running around the frozen wilderness. And it's about on the level of Frozen. It's pretty much exactly what I would expect from Frozen, which is to say, it was thoroughly mediocre. The whole premise opens up where like everyone's getting all excited about Christmas, and like Olaf is the main character, so he's wandering around the castle, just causing problems and ruining everyone's days. You know, people are tripping over him, getting like injured. You know, they've got to file for workers' comp, but everyone's all patient with Olaf. They're like, "Oh, Olaf, I'm so happy to see you. Sorry about my ankle there." And Olaf's like, "It's all right, don't worry about it, bud." So, yeah, it turns out that they're preparing for Christmas, and so Anna and Elsa, they open the doors to all the townspeople, and they're like, "Surprise! We're having a big Christmas party, and everyone's invited. You can come in, and you can have all of our fantastic, like, royal quality food and stuff like that. We had the servants slave away for hours setting all this up." And so the people all just turn around, and they're like, "Sorry, miss, but our family traditions are more important than the lavish foods and parties that you would throw for us." So Elsa and Anna, they're just like, "Oh, well, you know, if the common people don't want to have a party, we'll just throw away all the food. Throw it all out. Don't take any of it home, we'll know." So, you know, they don't want to have like a party with all the servants and everything like that. Servants are dirty. So they just kind of like give up on the party, and they really do. From all appearances, it looks like they just tell the servants to throw the food out, and they don't do their party. So Olaf, he says, "Oh, well, that's just sad. I mean, not for the world, but for Anna and Elsa. I think that I'm gonna go and I'm gonna find a tradition that they can do so that they'll be happy again." And my theory with Olaf is that, like, sometimes he has his moments, like in Frozen and even in this thing, he would occasionally say things that would get, like, a little chuckle out of me or that would cause me to crack a smile or whatever. But it wasn't consistent, you know? Like, I think that what Olaf does, he just throws as much stuff at the wall as he possibly can, and he hopes that some of it sticks. And it works, because sometimes it does stick, but he has a way of bordering on annoying with just how, you know, much stuff he's like. There's a lot of it that doesn't work, and so he just kind of keeps doing that. And so, like, I feel like Olaf, he's one of those people. He's got to create that sort of split. That, like, I dislike Olaf. I mean, like, I don't hate him to the same degree that some people do. Like, I wouldn't say, like, you know, I must never see Olaf in my presence. But like, I kind of dislike him. Like, I appreciate him sometimes, but for the most part, like, I feel like Olaf should be, you know, in the background where he belongs. I don't want to see Olaf all the time. I don't want to see 20 minutes of Olaf. I don't want Olaf to be the hero of a feature-length cartoon, okay? And, you know, other people kind of like him. Like, Claudia sort of likes Olaf, but, and I think kids like Olaf because, his just constant stupidity is probably really funny to, like, smaller kids. But to me, he's just sort of annoying. And, anyway, though, at the end of it all, nothing happens. It doesn't matter. It's stupid. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Olaf's Frozen Adventure. So that was, like, the first 20 minutes of the Coco film. After that, we got into Coco. And Coco, I was a little bit concerned because it starts off and it's actually pretty slow initially. I thought that I wasn't going to enjoy the movie. Fortunately, this is not the case. But you know how, like, in Disney's Up, and Pixar's Up, they often talk about, like, how beautifully they told a story in, like, the opening few minutes by just having visuals, you know, like, they just showed you this incredibly touching story between these two people. Well, Coco doesn't do that. Instead, what they do is they just have a narrator, and he just tells you the history of this family. He just goes, you know, back in the day, there was some people, and they was in love, but then they split up because the dad was a musician and the mom made shoes. And that's when I was born, 3 generations later. My grandma Coco is the last living descendant who remembers the musician who is dead now. So it's really just kind of like, you know, it's not really a very thrilling way to recount the story. Like, it's not profoundly boring, but it's not very exciting. It's just kind of like, okay, all right. I just sat through 20 minutes of Olaf movie. I mean, you're not waking me up at all. You're just gonna kind of let me sit here in this stupor. All right, fine. So, yes, the movie kind of, like, gradually works in, and everyone's like, oh boy, you have to make shoes. And the boys look, I don't want to make shoes. I'm gonna play guitar. And they're like, we don't play guitar in this family because your great-great-grandfather or whatever played guitar, and that was dumb. And then the boys look, oh, it's okay, well, I'm gonna go play guitar anyway. And so it kind of, like, goes back and forth like this, and it's sort of this incredibly, you know, you've seen the story 100 times before, and just because you've seen it 100 times before doesn't mean it's necessarily boring, but unfortunately the way that Coco presents it, it is kind of boring. So, finally it gets to the point where, like, Coco needs a guitar, so he can go play guitar at the Day of the Dead, like this performance that he wants to go to. And so he goes to a tomb and he steals a guitar from who he thinks is his great-great-grandfather. It's like this really famous musician, and the kid, you know, he sees that the guitar that his dad used to have from a photo is the same as the guitar that this guy played. So the boy goes, oh, like, this famous musician was actually my dad, you know, and we just never talk about him, so I didn't know that. And so he goes to this guy's tomb and he steals his guitar. This causes him to be cursed. The boy becomes dead. I mean, not really dead. He just becomes like a spirit, I guess. I don't know. He becomes intangible, and the mortal people cannot see him. So he's wandering around, and it's the Day of the Dead. So the dead are wandering around town, and he runs into his family, his dead family. And they're all like, oh, Coco, what are you doing here? And he's like, I don't know. I'm not sure. And he's got this dog that comes with him. The dog can see him. And the dog pretty much captures everything that is stupid about dog. There's not, like, it's just like boiled essence of stupid dog. Like, it doesn't really have, I don't know how to describe it exactly, but when you think of like everything that's just stupid about dog, not everything that's bad about dog, like it's not everything that's bad about dogs, it's just everything that's stupid about dogs, like is just wrapped up into this dog and creates a living entity. Like the animation, everything they do with the dog, it just screams like essence of stupid dog. And so like the most pure, stupid form of dog comes with this boy and proceeds along with him to just be like stupid dog. Not bad. Again, no complaints about this dog. Just saying, essence of stupid dog. So anyway though, so the dog and the boy, they go across the bridge, and then they're all like, how come the dog can cross the bridge? And then someone's like, well, maybe the dog's a spirit guide. But the dog is just so outrageously stupid and dog-like that everyone's like, or maybe it's just a dog. Like, maybe the dog doesn't know he's not dead. So he just kind of does what he's doing because he doesn't know better. So yes. So at the start of the movie, as they're crossing the bridge, they come to the land of the dead, and this guy is trying to get out of the land of the dead to go see his granddaughter or to see his daughter, you know, because he's never been out of the land of the dead. Nobody ever puts up his picture on the stand, so he doesn't get to go see his family. And so he's like disguised as Frida Kahlo, and he's like, oh, I'm Frida Kahlo, I need to go, you know. No one, you know, everyone remembers Frida Kahlo. I'll go, you know, like, I'm on my way. And they're like, oh, no, nobody's put your picture on the ofrenda. You can't go, fake Frida Kahlo. So they, you know, they drag him off to jail and whatever. And sure enough, when you see a character like this and he's there in the foreground, like, you think that's kind of a one-off gag. You never know for sure sometimes. Like, sometimes you see a character like that and it might be a one-off gag, but it turns out this guy's very important, but we'll get to him later. So, yes, so the family takes the boy into the land of the dead, and they find, like, some guy who's in charge of, like, land of the dead affairs. They find the boy's great-grandmother, the one who was married to the musician or whatever. And they're all like, well, what happened? And so they look it up, and they're like, oh, well, the boy stole from the dead on the Day of the Dead. You're not supposed to do that. That's how you get a curse. So to be uncursed, he needs his family's blessing. So you guys go ahead, just take this flower and tell him what you want, and then he'll agree to do it. And as long as he cooperates, then he'll be free to return to the land of the living. And they were like, okay, all right, you can turn back to the land of the living, but when you do so, stop being a musician. Never play music again. And the kid's like, okay. So he takes the flower, and then he picks up the guitar, and he tries to run off to go play music, and then he comes right back to the land of the dead. And they were like, not even 5 seconds! Not even 5 seconds! And you broke the rule! That we you know, one rule, and you broke it. And the kid's like, well, I want to play music! Like, I knew you wouldn't accept it, so I lied to you! And so they're like, no, like you can't, you have to follow our rule, like, you have to give up on music forever. And he's like, no! Because I know that my great-grandfather is actually this famous musician, and he'll give me a blessing, and so he runs off. He runs off to go get his blessing from this great-grandfather. Oh, another thing I should say, the animation is really good. You can't fault them for the animation for sure. One thing that was weird, I thought actually though, was that they congratulated themselves for the animation after Olaf, but before the movie started. It was just strange. And like, it's not like I can't blame them like being proud of the work, because it's like really amazing. Like, you know, the atmosphere is good, and like the animation is good, and just, you know, it's all really good. But it was just weird because it was just like Olaf, and it was like, man, movie, you better work really hard to make me forgive you for Olaf. And then it had like the film creators, and they were like, hey, we worked really hard on this film, like, here's this shot. And this was really frustrating because they showed like one of the, like, the shot of when they finally go to the land of the dead. It was like this big establishing shot that obviously, like, a lot of work went into this big establishing shot. Like, it was this huge, you know, like this overlook of the whole, and you get this a couple of times, you know, and it's like, oh man, there's so much work must have gone into this. But they show the establishing shot, you know, on the big screen, and I guess if you'd seen the previews, then maybe that's fine. But like, I don't know, they'd shown that shot, and then they were like, hey, we worked really hard on this. And then later on in the movie, when they showed that shot, I was thinking about that sort of like, you know, well, we're out of the, like, I got pulled out of the movie because I went back and I thought about that thing that they did before the movie started, where they were like, hey, we worked really hard, particularly on this scene. And I was just like, oh man, like, that's not what you're supposed to do. Like, when you're actually doing the performance, you don't want the audience to be thinking about how much work went into it. You want them to be like, just like, ooh, wow, ooh, cool. And then afterward, if they're impressed, then you tell them, like, oh man, let me tell you, like, we spent, you know, it took a month just to get that one establishing shot. Like that's when you do it, because beforehand, I don't know, it just pulled me out. I was just like, man, I mean, that must have been so much work. And now I'm kind of annoyed that I'm thinking about that. Why did you set me up for this movie? Why'd you set me up to fall? So, yeah. Anyway, weird. Just, I don't know, weird how they did that. And, yes. So what happens, though, is that the movie starts to take off right about here. This is where we start to get into the supernatural. We're kind of departed from all these, like, these mundane kind of tropes and everything like that. And the boy decides that he's going to, make his way through the land of the dead to get to his great-grandfather, to get his blessing so that he can go play the guitar. And so then you run into that guy from before who was dressed as Frida Kahlo so that he could, get into the world of the living. And the guy's like, he's kind of a rogue. He seems like he's a bit of a criminal, like he's not honest when he's trying to get out of the whole thing. So he meets the boy, and knowing these kind of things like I do, I thought to myself either one of two things. Either one, this guy is actually the boy's dad, and we're going to find out about that later. Or two, he's going to be a... Or there are three options. Or two, he's going to be like this comedic guy, and he's going to be like really fun. He'll be the favorite character of the movie. And it turned out he was probably my favorite character, to be honest. Or three, he's going to be the villain. And I was really hoping that he wasn't the villain, because I already kind of liked him, because he tried to dress up as Frida Kahlo to get to the land of the living, which, I gave him points for that. I already kind of liked him on that basis. So anyway, though, so they meet him, and he's like, you're looking for, I can't remember the name of the artist. It's like, you're looking for Stan Lopez, the man of dance, and so the kid's like, yeah, I'm related to Stan Lopan, the man of dance. Like, he's my father. I need his blessing to play guitar, and so this guy, he's like, well, I think it was De La Cruz. De La Cruz might be the name of the, and then Hector was the name, where they called him Chorizo. They called him Chorizo because he died from chorizo poisoning. I think his name was Hector, though. I think the guy's name was Hector, and the famous guy was named De La Cruz. So, anyway, though, and the kid's like, yeah, I'm related to De La Cruz. I have to go and I have to ask him for a blessing. And so Hector's like, well, I used to know De La Cruz. Back when I was alive, I used to pal around with the guy. And it sounds a little suspicious, but the kid's like, well, I'm on the run from my other family. So he makes this kind of quick choice, and he's like, all right, well, if you can tell me how to get to De La Cruz, then that's what I need. And he's like, all right, well, I'll take you to go see De La Cruz, and then what you'll do is you have to take this photo of me and put it on your ofrenda so I can come to the land of the living and I can see my daughter, because this is what I really wanted to see my daughter all this time. And I can't remember if he established this daughter thing or not, but that was definitely his motivation, is he wanted to go see his daughter. So, there was pure intentions behind the guy, and so that was about when I started to think, or when I nailed it down is a little bit later. It turns out that there's a spirit guide for the family of, or the other side of the family, the Shu family. What they have is this giant, jaguar, this giant, flying jaguar thing, this super intimidating deal, which got me to wonder, how do you get a spirit animal like that? Does it reflect the inner you? Is this mom, such a hard ass, such a hard-bitten badass that she gets this, giant tiger? When she's dead, they're like, oh, yeah, what spirit animal represents me? And they were like, the devil. And she was, perfect. And so, what does that say about the boy? That he gets, the stupidest parts of dogs everywhere, all rolled into one dog. Is he you are quintessentially in your soul a dog. A lot of people really love dogs. Don't worry about it. But essentially, you are, you get the dog. You have the dog, the dog. So, yeah, they run off. Speaking of the dog, I think she's all excited now. She thinks she's being talked about. Anyway, though, so yeah, they run off, and what happens is they make a little bit of a detour. Hector has to go and do something. I can't remember what. Oh, that's right. He needs a guitar, I think, because they come up with a plan where they can get into De La Cruz, his party, De La Cruz's party, if they win a competition that's going on right now. So Hector, he goes, all right, yeah, I think I can get you in. He takes him. I think he takes him to the rehearsal first. So there's a big rehearsal going on, and he's like, yeah, I'll take you to the rehearsal. De La Cruz, he knows me, so I'll just say, hey, De La Cruz, how's it going? This boy wants to talk to you. So they go to the building where everyone's doing the rehearsal for this big celebration, and it turns out that De La Cruz doesn't do rehearsals. He's so famous and everything that he just doesn't rehearse. So there they meet the real Frida Kahlo, who's slightly insane. But I think that's vaguely accurate. I mean, like if you only think about her art, she comes across as a little crazy. But from like I haven't read like a ton about her, but I guess that she's also maybe a little bit crazy if you read about her biographically too. So I don't know. They depict her as just really crazy, but it's kind of an endearing sort of crazy. She's got like this giant avocado that she's been building, and it's all very artistic. She is also the avocado. She's one with the avocado. And anyway, though, so yeah, they talk with her for a little bit. And I thought that this was just like an unnecessary cameo, but later on it turns out that Frida Kahlo is an important part of how they pull everything off. They pull everything together. They also disguise themselves as Frida Kahlo at least 2 more times. They've got rule of threes on the comedy there. Pretty great. Yeah. Anyway, though, so De La Cruz isn't there. And so Hector, he's like, oh, I don't know. He goes, okay, I know this other way that we can get you in. If you win this competition, you get into the party. So he's like, you said you were a musician. Can you play? And the kid's like, yeah, I can play. And he's like, well, can you play well enough? And the kid's like, I can. And I feel like, it's like it's destiny if I can earn my way to see him, because then it's like I've earned the blessing. So, he goes to play, and it turns out that he's actually a really good musician. But before he goes to play, he has to go to this place. Hector goes and he finds his friend, this other guy who, like, his family never puts up his ofrenda or his picture on the ofrenda, and he's like, oh, hey man, like, how's it going? I need to borrow your guitar. And then the guy's like, I won't let you take it till he goes, I can barely play it. He goes, I'm dying, I'm passing away, no one remembers me anymore. So Hector goes like, oh man, that's really sad. And the guy goes, well, I tell you what, you play me my favorite song and I'll let you keep it. And so Hector then plays, and it turns out that Hector is actually a beautiful musician. And that was when I was like, all right, Hector is the boy's dad. Diego, I think is the name of the boy? Maybe not. I don't know. The boy's dad. The boy. Mijo. Hector is the boy's dad. And so that was when I was like, okay, yeah, right. He's actually a wonderful musician, and he's probably being honest. He probably does know De La Cruz, and a big part of the conflict is going to be that he's going to meet De La Cruz. And I had it all figured out right about then, and I was like, all right, got it, nailed it. Yeah, I figured he's one of 3 things, and I've eliminated villain. I'm pretty sure I've eliminated comedic. Like, this was too sad for him to be the comedic relief. He's the dad. That was it. So, yeah. Too sympathetic to be the villain. Too sad to be the comedic relief. Gotta be the dad. That was all that could happen. So anyway, though, so the kid goes and he actually does play in this competition, and it's theoretically he wins, but then his family shows up and they attack with the tiger and everything like that. And by attack, I mean that they just try to get the boy so that they can send him back to the land of the living, because if he stays there past sunrise, then he dies for real. So he runs away from his family again, and he makes it to De La Cruz's big mansion. And sure enough, it turns out that De La Cruz is not really his dad. Hector shows up, and Hector's like, De La Cruz, and De La Cruz is like, oh, Hector, I didn't expect to see you here. And so the boy's like, well, hang on, like, you really do know De La Cruz? How come you weren't invited to the party then? And it turns out that Hector had written all the music that De La Cruz had been singing. And then it turns out that De La Cruz had killed Hector. And Hector wasn't, like, too sour about this, except for the fact that he wasn't able to, like, he was trying to give up on the music life and return home to his family when he got killed. And so I feel like this is, I mean, like, De La Cruz probably jumped the gun on this. He probably didn't need to kill Hector. I mean, like, Hector was giving up on the music life. He probably could have just bought the rights from Hector or something. I mean, like, I don't know what kind of relationship they had, but apparently De La Cruz is slightly insane. So he killed Hector, and so now, you can't kill people twice, but you can kill a boy, I guess. So he just throws him in a pit, and he's like, don't talk about this. Nobody talk about this. So to wrap things up rather quickly, they wind up getting rescued again by the flying cat thing. The mom shows up and she sees Hector down there, and she's like, Hector, like, why are you with my great grandson? And then it's kind of like he's like, I didn't know he was my great grandson, and da 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 da, and they kind of go back and forth, and she's still mad at him, but like they kind of talk it out. They're like, I was murdered, like I was trying to come home to you, I missed you so much, and she's like, I don't know if I've forgiven you or not, but then she kind of warms up to it. She kind of does forgive him because his story is fair and it's compelling, and they reveal that De La Cruz was the bad guy, or rather he reveals himself. They do the old mic trick where they have the bad guy talking to like oh, I'm secretly recording you, and then he announces to his entire audience like, I am the villain of the movie, and so then everyone turns on him. And they rescue the day, and everything happens, and it's all dramatic, and Frida Kahlo helped, and then they go home, and they put up the picture, and they remember the dad, and they play a song for Grandma Coco, who looks up and she tells the boy, she says, Coco, 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 because she's from the character from Foster's Home from Imaginary Friends, if you don't get that. I was thinking about when I was telling this, I was going to make that joke, but I forgot to set it up, so now it's probably not as funny, now it's just stupid. But anyway, though, yes, the movie ends, and Hector is remembered, and he gets to visit, because they put his picture up and everything like that. And, yeah, all things considered, the movie really started to take off once they got to the land of the dead. That's about where I started to have fun. I really liked Hector. So Hector was kind of my favorite character of the film. I sort of liked most of the family, to be honest. I liked a lot of the dead characters. Even they like the scene where they meet De La Cruz. They have this kind of a fun comedic scene with De La Cruz, where they're like, "Oh, I'm your dad," and so he starts running around. He's like showing everyone that says like, "This is my great grandson. Hey, have you seen my great grandson? This is my great grandson." And he's just all excited. He's like taking the boy everywhere, like all over town for all these big events. He's like, "My great grandson. Have you seen him?" And so that's kind of cute. It's sort of fun. I don't know, just a lot of really good stuff. Once they got in the land of the dead, the movie got good, and I had a good time. So I ended the movie feeling pretty good, pretty satisfied. Glad that it picked up, glad that it gained momentum, and then held it to the end. So yeah, it was kind of like sort of a slow burn. Took a little bit to get moving, but then was good. Good film. So yeah, I'd recommend going to see it. I mean, I spoiled everything for you, but you can still enjoy the visuals and just hearing me talk about it doesn't do full justice to the characters and everything else like that. So I've spoiled the big reveals, but if you know scripts, then the big reveals won't come as too big of a shock, because like I say, you kind of get in that rhythm. Claudia sometimes comments on this. She's like, all right, so when did you know the answer? And I was like, oh yeah, like you have these beats that, any kind of creative fiction tends to hit. And so, like it's either, you start off, you see a character and you're like, all right, this character is either these things, or this is going to happen, or that's going to happen. Because it also depends on when you see them, because kind of like you've got to set up your conflict, and you do this, and you do that. It all sort of follows, patterns, and if you really know those patterns, if you're savvy on those patterns, you won't be shocked. But if you don't think about that stuff very often, and you don't analyze your films to death like I do, to your happiness or detriment, depending on how you perceive it, then whatever. I guess I spoiled it for you. But still, good movie. Had a good time. Could do without Olaf. I wouldn't mind seeing the movie a second time if they just got rid of Olaf. So yes, I suppose that'll be it for today. Thanks for joining me, everybody. I'll catch you all next time.